Hi YouTube, it's Kathy, and this is my weekly entertainment wrap-up for April 28th through May 4th. This week I read one book, I watched one movie, I watched one show, and I listened to 2 books. First this week I finished The Romantic Agenda. This is about a woman who has known that she is ace for a very long time, but didn't really know the word for that until college. When she was also in college, she met her best friend Malcolm, who is also ace, and they have been the best of friends for the last 10 years. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on the way you look at it, I suppose, she's also been in love with him for 10 years, and has watched him go through relationship after relationship after relationship, just wondering why he wouldn't want to be with her. Finally, the time comes where she thinks that he wants them to get together in that type of way, but it turns out he just wants her to go on this weekend vacation with him because he's bringing this woman he really likes and she wants to meet Joy. Joy being the name of our main character, if I didn't say that before. And he also wants Joy to run a little bit of interference because the woman he likes is also bringing a friend whose birthday it is that weekend, and basically it's like, Joy, if you could make sure that Fox is occupied while I'm with Summer, I would be really happy about that. Malcolm is a really big planner and he gets pretty upset when things go off course, so of course that happens a lot during the course of this weekend. I said course in that sentence 3 times. I heard it while I was saying it. I really enjoyed this, and it's not super often that you get to see some romances featuring asexual folks, so if you have any recommendations for me, let me know down below. As for the movie I watched it last night and it made me cry a whole bunch, and that's Turtles All the Way Down. I have been eagerly anticipating the release of this movie, and I'm just happy it was on one of the streaming services I happen to have access to. If you live in Canada and you have access to Crave, or you have a friend who does, which is my case, that's how you can watch this. Turtles All the Way Down is an adaptation of this book by John Green, which I absolutely loved when it was published back in... Ooh, I have a signed copy, I forgot. 2017, and I purposely didn't reread the book in anticipation of the film. 1, because I was out of the country until almost the time that it came out. In fact, I was supposed to be flying back on May 2nd, which is when it was released. And 2, because I remember general things about the story, but I didn't want to be one of those people that is really mad if, like, somebody's eye color is different or those little details. As long as they weren't changing the major things in this book, which I was pretty confident they weren't because John Green himself really loved the movie, I was gonna be fine with it. And this is great. If you've never heard about this before, it's about this girl named Asa. She has this best friend named Daisy, and one day they find out that this friend that Asa had when she was a kid, because they both went to the same SAD camp, or camp for kids that were grieving a loss, they find out that that person's father is missing, and there is a huge reward to figure out where he went. Daisy really wants to try to get this reward, and Asa just kind of goes along with her investigation, and in the process she ends up reconnecting with Davis, and they realize there might be some feelings there. However, there's something about Asa that she herself feels is getting in the way of her being happy, being in a relationship, and that's the fact that she is living with OCD. This is Own Voice's OCD rep in the fact that John Green has OCD, and I remember reading this, and there's a very certain part in it where it goes from 3rd person to 1st person, which is something I don't normally notice. Quite honestly, I'm never really going, oh yeah, that book was written in 1st, that book was written in 3rd, but while I was reading it and that happened, it is a very impactful part, and it's definitely one of the parts I cried in at the movie. This movie is fantastic, and I highly recommend checking it out if you have access to whichever streaming service it's available on, wherever you live. As for the one show I watched this week, we had about an hour where we wanted to kind of be doing something before bed, and I did point out that the 17th season of Taskmaster has started updating to YouTube, so we watched the first episode of that, even though I was kind of hoping I could kind of ignore it until all of them were up and we could just watch all of them. I think they're up to 6 or 7 at this point, but I just kind of want them to all be there so when we get to like the end of an episode I don't have to stop before a finale. The contestant in this cast that I'm most excited about is Nick Mohammed, who you might know from Ted Lasso because I sure do. My first impressions from this first episode, everybody else seems pretty funny and great as well. On to the books I listened to this week, the first one being the last book that I finished in April, and that is The Change. This is all about these 3 women women who live in the same small New York State town. They don't know each other at the beginning, but they definitely know each other pretty well by the end. Not only do we get this current storyline, but we also get to see things that happen in their past leading up to this very important change in their lives, which when people talk about the change, they're usually talking about menopause, and that's exactly the reason why these women now have powers. One of the three of them, Nessa, knew that she would eventually get these powers because her mother also had these powers. Her powers in particular, she can hear people who have died, and they're calling out to her so she can find them and try to get some justice for them. Then we have Jo, who used to work in corporate America, but then she funded her own female-only gym called Furious Fitness, and she can actually use the heat from her hot flashes to create this incredible strength. And then we have Harriet, who used to be in the world of advertising and now has retired from that to be the local witch. All of these women come together and Nessa finds her first body, and they realize that they probably have a serial killer in the area, and they try to solve who it could be. I thought this book was absolutely phenomenal, but you'll have to watch my April wrap-up to see how it ranked in all of the books I read last month. What really intrigued me about this one is usually we get the chosen one trope, so it's just one person who gets powers, and that one person gets it when she becomes a woman, or whatever the heck that means. And I just really liked that it was this community of people who are destined to work together, who don't come into their powers until they're in a different stage of life. The other audiobook I listened to involves another woman with a lot of strength, and that's The Woman in Me by Britney Spears. Although the introduction and the prologue of this one are read by the author, this is some really tough material, so she actually opted to have somebody else read the audiobook, which I commend her for, because that's a boundary that she probably needed to make because she has had some really bad things happen to her in her life. Starting from her upbringing, she has an alcoholic father and a mother who's constantly yelling at the father even though he's passed out, so the kids can't actually sleep because she won't stop yelling, even though the person that she's yelling at can't even hear her. She also had some devastating things happen to family members when she was young, and then obviously she went on to be a child star who grew into a pop star, one of the most influential women in the entire world, but that didn't stop people from being shitty to her. It also doesn't help that the first person she truly loved, outside of her family and all of that type of thing, like a romantic love, was not being faithful to her, and also some other things happened around that. Definitely go into this knowing the trigger warnings because there are a lot of them. And then of course, as we all know now, but we didn't necessarily know a few years ago, the conservatorship, where her father just decided that he was now Britney Spears for all intents and purposes, and she was just a dancing monkey who had to do whatever he wanted, and if she stepped out of line, she was no longer allowed to see her kids, and she was institutionalized for no reason. I say she's strong because I don't know if I personally would have made it out of that situation where I put in it. I don't really keep up with her life on the day-to-day, but by the end of this book it seems pretty hopeful. There was another kind of loss near the end of the book, and I'm really sorry for that, but I just hope she's doing really well now. That's it for this week. If you've read, watched, or listened to any of these, let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. If you don't feel like leaving a comment but want to make sure that I know you were here, just leave me an emoji or a smiley face if you happen to be on your keyboard. Some people have asked if there's a way to financially support this channel, so I set up a Ko-fi account, which is a digital tipping service. The link for that, as always, is down below. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon. Bye!